I picked up this gorgeous maple dresser for $75. Not the best deal, but not the worst one either. Maple is one of my favorite woods to work with because it finishes like a dream. This one had a few nicks and dings, but was in generally good shape. I started as usual with my carbide scraper, but the finish laughed in its face. So shortly after, I pulled out the orbital sander. Game on. I started with 120 grit, worked up to 220, and ended up finishing with 400. Smooth as butter. Off camera, I patched a few spots with Bondo glazing gel and wood putty. Then I sanded them smooth like they were never there. I scuff sanded the sides and used a padded disc for the curves. There were two big chunks that needed serious help, so I used epoxy wood putty. It dries hard like a rock and sands like a champ. For those curved top edges, I went full toolbox. Orbital sander, sanding wedges, hand sanding, and a stainless steel scraper. If it sands, I used it. And this is where I wrapped up for the day. And today we're knee-deep in part 2 of refinishing this vintage maple dresser. In part 1, I patched up all the dings and holes and gave the cabinet a good scuff sand. Now it's time to tackle the drawers. First up, hardware removal. I boiled the knobs to loosen decades of grime and paint. If you haven't tried this trick yet, it's a game changer. One of the drawer glides had come unglued, so I reattached it with wood glue and added a couple of nails off camera to make sure it stays put. Then it was time to sand the drawers, followed by a second attempt at the top of the dresser, which, let me tell you, was fighting me every step of the way. I hit it with some acetone. Nothing. I tried stripper. Still no luck. In the end, I went back to my trusty orbital sander to power through. Not every piece goes smoothly, but that's all part of the journey when you're learning furniture flipping. Come back for part 3 when I finally get to the fun part, painting and sealing this dresser. All right, this is it, part 3 of refinishing this solid maple dresser. And we're finally at the fun part, painting. If you missed the before of this before and after, parts 1 and 2, we sanded, patched, and repaired. And now it's time to bring this thing to life. Let's go. First, I popped the dresser up on an old pallet and taped off the top because I was going to do paint wash up there later and didn't want any overspray. I grabbed my spray gun and thinned out the primer just a bit with water to help it go on smoother. Once it dried, I gave it a light sanding because nothing makes the finish as professional as sanding in between coats. And surprise, that first primer coat always reveals the little dings you swore you already fixed. So out came the Bondo again to fill those in, and then I hit it with a second coat of primer. This part's sped up, but in real life, it's just me and the spray gun in a very committed relationship. After another light sanding, I grabbed some black paint that I had on hand. Again, I diluted it slightly for a smoother spray. The second coat of black paint was the same process. One side, the front, then the other side. I leave the drawers in when I spray paint, which means I have to go back in and pull them out and hand paint the top ridges. After that, I mixed a little polyacrylic into the leftover paint and gave the whole piece 2 thin coats of sealant. Next, I carefully cut open the paper on top, like unwrapping a really fragile birthday gift, and did my first paint wash using a color called dry brown. Normally, I'd do the top first and then the base, and yeah, I should have stuck to that. A few drips made their way onto the black. I wiped them, but they left a faint mark. Lesson learned. Still, I let the top dry, lightly sanded, and then did a second wash and wiped it for a nice even finish. Here's where things got dicey. I thought I grabbed a wipe-on polyacrylic from Watco, but no. Turns out it was their wipe-on polyurethane. Totally different beast. It went on thick, it was hard to spread, and it didn't level well. I sanded in between coats, tried again, still had some unevenness, so I gave it another sanding and touched up the trouble spots manually. It's not perfect, but it's honest work. As a reminder, here's where it started, and here's the after. I think this piece turned out elegant and stately. The matte black base paired with that caramel-colored top and the original hardware, chef's kiss. What do you think? Would you keep it or flip it? My name is Meg, and I show you practical tips for refinishing and flipping furniture. Be sure to hit the follow button for more.